Mr. V.N. Shuklaji is the Chief Technology Officer in Central Election Commission. And presently on deputation to ECI, Election Commission of India. So we are in touch with Mr. Shukla. It's over now. It's more than a decade now. So earlier, several times we discussed on several data security and IT infrastructure related issue related to election commission and related to democratic freedom. So now we are living in an age of generative AI, where we can generate enormous amount of data and images and video and audio, everything. And this generative AI, with the help of this generative AI, we can make any kind of fabricated story, and that is really a threat to democracy. So for this dialogue, our the key area of concern is not the AI is a threat to humanity, but AI is a threat to democracy. It's now 3, and we can start our discussion. And I over to Amanji.
Thank you. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Good to have you all together here. I'll just set the context because we had some friends of ours who were asking us what is the real context. And there's something that all of us have already been fed. We all know a lot about AI, generative AI, and quite a few of persons who are joining us are experts in researching the trust factor around AI and how it helps and whether the policy is in the right direction. The context in which this particular roundtable is set is from the viewpoint of elections in India. And in the next year, we also have India and US both going to elections. From a democratic perspective, as a think tank, we've always been asked the question that while there is a lot of buzz around how the technology is progressing, how everyone is talking about what AI can achieve and what it is achieved, what it has been achieving, and what are the negative points which are coming to light. As far as deepfakes are concerned, it was a buzzword quite early. But of late, in the past 7 days, there's a lot of action happening. The policymakers are discussing and debating around it. What sort of regulatory mechanisms should be adopted? What are the compliance structures? And the buzz that came from US last month that there would be some policy which would put the onus back on the social media platforms to discover and watermark what they feel would have been AI generated, and also to have some sort of mechanism in place. How does it actually impact or influence what the democracy is progressing to? How does the average citizen on the street who has a franchise that he wishes to exercise, how does it affect him? How does it influence the democratic process? When we say AI and we say that its impact on elections, is this even a sensible thing to consider? Will the twain meet, or has it already made an impact? For paucity of time, we got a request. We have a gentleman, Shri V.N. Shuklaji, joining us. He's working closely with the Election Commission of India and a man in charge of data management, and who should be the first one to set the context whether how the Election Commission perceives the generative AI and the deep fakes and the buzz around it. What are their views that would allow us on the think tank side, thought leadership side, and also on the tech side to put the things in motion? Just to brief you all, we have a very heady mix today. We have policymakers. We have Dipti Vilas sir, who's on the screen, who retired as Regional Secretary to the Indian government. We have Shuklaji, who will be the first speaker, who joins us from the Election Commission. We have Simon and Josh, who are global political consultants and pollsters who actually have a pulse on the way elections are framed. and how the data influences voting behavior. We have Abhijit and Abhishek who are doing this from the Indian side. We have Jaspreet Ji, who's from the Big Four, the quintessential Big Four man. He's coming from Grant Thornton. We have Maya, who's from Trusted AI. Sanjay Kaushik, who's the managing director of a cybersecurity firm, Netrika, if I'm correct. Sanjay Ji, please correct me. Rupa, who's a published author of Bodhi AI. Everyone gets a chance to speak. We have Professor Dr. Charu, who's from the Indian Institute of Public Administration. She also heads the cybersecurity and IT division there. Yash Arya, who's the co-founder of Emerging Technology Council and very closely related to policy making. And Uma, she joins us from Uma TIAA. You will have to do the honors in explaining exactly what you do, but we know that you are a thought leader and very active in discussing generative AI. And advocate Dr. Harsh Pathak from Supreme Court, and Harmeet, who's the co-founder of India Blockchain Alliance, who joins us. So over to you, Sanjay Ji, to set the VN Shukla Ji to set the context.
Thank you very much, and good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, everybody. Just a small correction. I was with Election Commission of India for about a decade, but in 2019 November, I retired from there. And currently, I am a Chief Technology Officer of CSC E-Governance India Limited, which is a prominent unit of Ministry of Information Technology. But however, the topic what we are discussing today, we have been discussing earlier also inside the Election Commission and around the Election Commission of India. Few points I would like to highlight over here is their agenda. Number one, government formation through Election Commission of India is a process which goes through election, selection, everything. And accordingly, President of India is given the list. President of India then invites the political party, winner political party, to form a government. It's a very standard process, and this is supposed to be a gold standard across the world because Indian elections are very, very impartial, very, very systematic, and do have the backing from Constitution part itself. The second component that we really need to understand before we discuss about usage of AI is what exactly are the databases that are fundamental databases for any election across the world. That is the point we need to first look at. For Election Commission of India, I always used to say that there are 4 different databases which we need to look at. One is the electoral roll database. All participants, those who would like to vote, those who are eligible to vote, or those who are allowed to vote. That is the database. Second database is the political party and candidates, those who contest elections. For some nations, there are only few parties, there are 2 parties or only few parties. But for India, we allow n number of parties. So if you go to see from Election Commission of India's website, we'll find that there are more than 17,000 registered parties in India, those who contest elections at different level and at different time. There are something like 4,000 political parties which are considered as a national parties. Of course, out of them are very few which are really large parties and contest the national elections. And remaining are state level parties which are registered for a particular region or particular area. These political parties, they are supposed to go through a registration process with Election Commission of India, and they get registered accordingly. Now, the third group of database that we often look at it is the cycle through which election passes. For example, in 2019, general election to parliament was there. After 5 years, 2024, the next round of elections for parliament will come up, and this cycle will continue after every 5 years. For Jammu and Kashmir, it is 6 years. It was 6 years. Now I don't know what modification constitution will do for that. But 5 years is a period during which we go through. Not only that, but announcement of election to the counting and formation of government. For this particular cycle also, there is a constitutional way of handling cycles. For example, one particular day, Election Commission of India announces the election. Later on, there is a gazette notification issued. After gazette notification is issued, some duration is allowed, during which contesting candidates, those who would like to contest election, they are supposed to register themselves with returning officers of different constituency. There is one returning officer for each constituency duly appointed by Election Commission of India. And then to that returning officer, political parties and candidates, those who are wanting to contest election, they go through a registration process there. After that, returning officer has a scrutiny done on those applications received. And after scrutiny is completed, he announces list of eligible contesting candidates, those who are really going to contest election that time. And after that, some number of days, maximum 20, 24 or 29, those number of days are permitted to these candidates to converse themselves among the constituents, among the voters. And one particular fine day, voting happens. After voting is completed, counting will begin on one particular predefined day. And after counting, a new constitution is prepared by Election Commission of India, which is fundamentally list of winning candidates. And then their affiliation to political party or their affiliation as an independent candidate. And that list is given to Honorable President of India, if it is a parliament election, or to the governors of different states, if it is a assembly constituency elections. So till that time, the cycle is predefined, and this complete cycle is announced by Election Commission of India on the announcement date. So these days and dates are having some relevance with the constitution, with the lawful actions and all. And that's why the third database is that of the election conduct dates and the cycle of that particular part. Under some particular reason, some particular bindings, only Election Commission, they do have a right to modify that cycle with due approval of themselves. And then they announce it prior to that in consultation with political party and cabinet. That is the third database that we need to look at. And fourth and most important database is during the cycle of conduct of election, whatsoever complaints are raised by individual citizen or by political parties or by announcements of different offices, those are to be made public. For example, when some candidate wish to contest election and submit his application to the returning officer during the registration process, he will have to give two more things. One, complete assets that he possesses. Complete assets, those are possessed by his or her relatives, near relatives. His educational qualification, his court of law kind of relationship. If somebody has been charged by the court, then that also has to be mentioned. Then his bank details are to be published and some affidavit is to be submitted. Against this affidavit, against this possession, if some citizen has got some objection or some other party has got some objection, they are being raised, and all such complaints, they are recorded in the fourth database and they are maintained. Along with that, during the canvassing period, if somebody is violating some rules and some laws which we often call it as a model code of conduct, then objections are raised. Those objections are also added to this particular database. And those objections are to be resolved by Election Commission of India. They have to become judge, and accordingly they are supposed to take some decision, and they are supposed to give some punishments also to a person who has done something wrongful. That particular database. Besides that, there is one more database gets added. Once election and counting is completed, then returning officer submit one report, and that particular report contains all highlights. For example, candidate winning margin, candidate secure number of votes secured by each candidate and all. And those details are supposed to be maintained, which often are called as Form 20 details in Election Commission of India terminology. So that is the fourth database. Now these are truth. These are facts. And on that fact, any AI system is supposed to work for any prediction applied, or any conclusion to be drawn, or any details to be found by any algorithm, may it be passive algorithm, or may it be active algorithm, or may it be a predictive algorithm of AI. And accordingly, this needs to be done. Now, out of it, some particular data is a open data, and some particular data is not open to public. It is under possession of
Sir, with your permission, we wanted to focus more on the deep fake side, which is where we are saying that the information can be used in a different way. The content can be created in a different way. So I think we've got the idea of the process that you're following here. However, for us to go deep dive, Amanji, do you want to guide us a little bit more on specifically the issues? We are talking more about the way the humans are being used like puppetry, right?
Yes.
We're talking about the abstract system that is being built out. So we are trying to get there, right? So if you want to share 2 minutes on that side, would be good.
You are right. You are right. But that's what I really wanted to highlight.
Yeah.
Because artificial intelligence algorithms or deep learning algorithms, they work onto a data, and what data is the truthful factual data and what data is the transactional data need to be understood by the algorithm properly. Only then the conclusion will come out very properly. That's why we deliberated. In Election Commission also we deliberated on that. And
have we seen a case study or an implication of fake videos or fake stories or fake strategies being used according to, I mean, that's what we wanted to kind of go at right now. The team here has a fairly good understanding of the election process that we are following in India. We just wanted to go a little more specific on the point. I really appreciate what you said, sir, but from that perspective, that would be better.
No worry, we have a request to speak. Jasprit ji, you can go ahead.
I'll probably give a couple of examples just there, Abhijit, and these are examples available in public domain on where use of either deep fakes or use of AI resulted in creating fake news, which created a huge panic. I think it was first week of August or first week of September when a news was circulated in US. A news item was getting circulated in US in which it mentioned that the Pentagon was bombed for 3 hours. It was a news which was created using AI, which was actually not the case. And for the first 2 hours, SEC had a free fall. The second was this is in Toronto's biggest court. A lawyer was presenting a case. When he looked at what some of the case studies, he used some AI tools to find out similar cases. AI threw up 4 cases for him. When they actually went into history, they discussed this in court. The court awarded the case to the defendant. However, later on, when the case report was being filed, they came to know that all the 4 examples that were quoted by the person right, by the lawyer were fake. They were all created themselves by the LLM software that they use. So I think imagine US having this problem where a fake photograph could create a free fall, where there is much more awareness, where the adoption of technology is much more. God forbid, we are. Let's take a case of Kumbh Mela. We are attending a Kumbh Mela. Somebody creates a fake photograph, circulates something. I'm just saying, and with you know what disastrous consequences it will have in India.
Jasprit ji, exactly that is what I really wanted to point out, that use of AI can be defined with respect to case or with respect to the need, but simultaneously to make the sanctity of this particular AI application, we also should need to decide what AI should not do. For example, the biggest challenge and what I tried during my period was handling of this fake news. Fake news on social media creates a very good impact during the election process. And how to identify something as a fake news and how impact of that fake news could be reduced should be
Right.
one of the logic that one need to go ahead with. The second
Right.
example I have is, sorry, I'm just trying to push myself out over here. The second example is when candidates submit their affidavit, they give their all details, their property details, their family details, their educational background, their court punishments, if any, or any court case going on. And when counting is over and if they win or lose, some correlation between the two, and this particular correlation during the period if some complaint has been raised by somebody. Many times what happens, a small voice generated. It might be true. The person who is generating noise during the process might be saying something correct, but it is not heard because of the mass and because of some other reasons. So if we need to correlate with that, then these three databases need to be handled, and then AI should work on that, and prediction of that nature can be generated. That is the second angle I always have in mind, and I did some particular kind of module formation of that part as well.
This is
Third
very
and most
enlightening.
important part, AI for the citizen or AI for all the constitution is all right, but there could be some AI solution for the officers, those who are conducting election. During election, returning officers, they do have many work to do. And during their work, they are supposed to follow all rules, all constitutional facts. But many a times, the data given by political party or data given by the candidate contesting election, that analysis of that data is not done. And many a times, some mistakes are committed by returning officer, leading them to face some punishment later. So if we can have AI at three stages. One, AI for the officers to improve the functionality of their work during the conduct of election. AI for the public to not get affected by fake news kind of thing and get more educated about the candidate to whom they are supposed to vote or not to vote. And third, analytical part of the election process itself. So at three different levels,
So we
AI
are more focused
can
on
be-
the second level, and I will ask Maya or to kind of contribute on that. How does this whole notion of fake news or fake information or fake data actually leverages a mandate towards one party, or actually kind of reduces the real intent of democracy? So over to you, Maya, if you want to share 2 cents on that.
Sure, thank you for the question. I guess that and it's something that, first of all, thank you so much for the insightful remarks about the current processes in Indian elections. I wanted to mention, especially in regard to democracy, it is very important to mention the dual role of artificial intelligence, meaning it can provide a solution once properly used, but the current expansion of AI, generative AI, leads to additional fake news, additional content generation by users. And when we are addressing the role of fake news on democracies, on electoral processes, we need to understand that AI will bring the problem as much as it will bring the solution. So for us, it's also understanding which aspects of AI we would like to emphasize in electoral processes. What should be moderated? Today, actually, we're discussing much more about constitutional AI, trying to bring legal frameworks and other databases to artificial intelligence technologies. But in the same time, I'll give a caveat saying that the content generation capabilities of generative AI today put great risks when it comes to the authenticity of data published. So when we're discussing about the impact of fake news on democracy, especially in times of what I would say is almost hyper AI era with increased generative AI capabilities, we need to be very mindful, I would say, about the role of the users, meaning it not necessarily the politician alone, it's also about the users involved, the one that can actually generate content. So of course, this can come from the more institutional perspective of how we're actually enhancing the databases, as I said before, how we're making the entire processes more efficient. But I would say that to keep the democratic values, the authenticity of the processes, it is imperative to put the right safeguards to moderate the risk of fake content online, especially understanding that we also don't want to censor users. So this balance, I believe, is probably one of the more interesting aspects of deepfakes that I believe that others will also like to contribute to. So I guess this is my view when it comes to fake news, democracies, and I guess we'll delve to different aspects in the discussion today.
Thanks, Maya. Thanks, Maya. Rupa, you had raised your hand.
Yeah, I have something to share. Thanks, Maya, for your perspective. So misinformation and promoting misinformation and promoting misinformation has been a traditional strategies always, but with the advancement of AI and new technological methods such as deepfakes, now there are even more challenges, and it is also impacting elections, democracy, and how we see societies. And so not only the public trust, it is definitely impacting the political discourse. It has a significance, misinformation has a significant impact on political discourse, public trust, but also how it is shifting the informational environment paradigm. So I think that's one of the things. And another important aspect is misinformation about misinformation. So the researcher Chesney and Citron in 2019, they coiled the term called liar's dividend, which means that rejecting what is or saying what is truth, saying it as it is fake or deep fakes, and which gives a liar's dividend, or basically giving authority to the liars, and which is even a bigger issue where we don't know whom to trust. And there's a blurring of lines with the deep fakes and all these technologies. There is now a blurring of lines between what is reality and fake. So I think that's a concerning issue, and there's several impacts on the elections and democracy, which has been already noted in previous elections. And there are few 5 steps to mitigate these challenges, and maybe as we progress, in the discussion, I would like to share the 5 steps. But I
Thank
would
you,
like to
Rupa.
hear from others. Yeah.
Thank you, Rupa, for insights. I'd like to bring Advocate Harsh Pathak in now. I know, Rupa, you had raised your hand. Once Dr. Pathak speaks, then I'll come to you. And I'll also like to get the juicy part in. How do the pollsters, Abhishek, Abhijit, Simon, and Josh, who are in charge of global political concern, how do you look at it? Do you look at it as a concern or a tool or a solution? We'd like to hear that perspective as well. No one speaks about that. Over to you, Dr. Harsh. You're muted.
Yes, thank you for this opportunity. See, 3 things are very important, which I just would like to point out. I happen to be the part of the Electoral Reforms Committee, which is made of the Government of India and the Election Commission jointly. The main concern for the official, those who conduct the festival of democracy, which is called elections, is the hatred and fake news. These are the 2 things. And apart from that, the voters list issue. So whether we talk about fake news or whether we talk about the process, another thing which is important in terms of having the voters list issue, but we will come to the voter list issue separately because that's a very unique area, and how the automation is also working in this area in terms of verifications and the cards when they're issued, and how this thing is still able to manage the fake voters. But most interestingly, as we talk about the fake news, the fake content, which gets us a real marketing boom or its celebrity at the time of elections, whether it's a state level elections or the union elections. So I think the bill, the Broadcasting Service Bill, which was tabled now in the Parliament, is going to make a significant change, because that is going to make the individuals also liable for putting up a news on any of the OTT or online platform. So that is going to be something which is very, very significant, and we have to see how that is going to make the impact. Number 2, as far as the fake news is concerned and use of AI is concerned in creating a news to change the mood of the voters, I would like to keep my focus limited to the elections and electoral sentiments. So we have got sufficient safeguard in the Information Technology Act in the IPC as well. And I'm sure we have got officials from the Election Commission, and they must be knowing that every state observer and every returning officer is also be informed of the number of cases filed in the police station at that point of time for spreading the false news. So what I would like to bring onto the table, 1 or 2 takeaways is, yes, there is an AI use, but the recent Broadcasting Service Bill is going to have a major impact in days to come in terms of putting up the fake news on internet to turn the sentiments of the electorate or to the voters at the time of elections. So I'm really hopeful and looking forward for this bill, and I request the lot of content is available in the internet as well. And if we can see this bill, because what we hear in the news that this bill is going to get through in the coming sessions. So this is one point, the Broadcasting Service Bill, including individuals also responsible for disseminating the correct content on the internet, is going to be a very, very major way forward. And in the democratic setup, this is a very important legislation which is going to impact upon the free and fair elections. That's the point which I just would like to point out at the moment.
Thanks, Dr. Harsh. Thanks for enlightening us. Uma, you wanted to speak?
Yeah, can I just 1 minute? Can I just ask Dr. Harsh something on this issue?
Yeah, sure. Go ahead, please.
Dr. Harsh, don't you think this is stifling the voices and it's bordering towards censorship, the new broadcast bill? So just keep that in mind, because I don't want to go into discussions on that, but let us not become Kalidas of past. Kalidas, for those who don't know, initially when he was not literate, was trying to chop off the branch on which he was sitting. So the dance of democracy in elections is based on truth. And truth narratives are getting distorted is one story, but truth is also equivalent to expression of interest, and you can't stifle that in democracy. So let's park it for now. But I think we should look at it very pragmatically when it comes to this new bill. Second thing, since I've been allowed to speak, I kind of jumped into it because I was listening. we have to also realize that the whole story has emanated from the audience, the recipient themselves, when we have stopped validating the sources of truth. Why deepfake has become such a big issue is because now nobody is validating how the information was created. They are just validating how interesting and tempting and seductive it is in terms of its presentation, and hence taken as truth. So in present times, the whole game, the foundation is in sensitization of public and also sensitization of media in terms of credibility of information to be circulated. So we do have certain, as a professor in this subject, I would say we have certain platforms run by certain initiatives where we can use these tools to sensitize media professional about the veracity of information. So I'll just close here. When the round comes on how to ensure this kind of approach, I'll speak then. So Dr. Harsh, we can connect later on this discussion. Thank you.
Thanks, Dr. Charu. Uma, you may go ahead.
Thank you so much, Aman. At the beginning, Shukla sir mentioned about the 4 databases which are kind of crucial in the elections, and I believe that deep faking is pervasive in all the 4 areas. So in the first area, which is the electoral database, now there was a video where you can actually create fake fingerprints of individuals, because Aadhaar is kind of the base for getting you to vote, and the base for Aadhaar is iris or fingerprints. And if I can create a fake individual, basically I can create a fake voter, and that is a big issue. Secondly, the political party and candidate, now what I've done is I've kind of democratized the whole process of photoshopping. Earlier also this used to happen, but now no more stronger political parties who have a stronger ideological base have the ability to kind of stifle the voices, because tomorrow if in 2024 elections, on the morning of the elections, I show a video of pardon me, but maybe Modi ji taking bribe for someone, I can do that using deepfake, and that is kind of it's a bomb. It needs censorship of some level, because we do not have time. We do not have a lot of time. It has to have long-term solutions and short-term solutions. The long-term solutions is of course the regulations and the policies, but the short-term solutions are if you are not able to, Charu ma'am, if you're not able to differentiate between what is real and what is unreal, then that becomes a real problem, because I can create havoc with this tool, right? It is like a weapon which is yet to be unleashed, or it is already unleashing. And in multiple forms. There have been several incidents, the Pope wearing a Balenciaga shirt, or the Ukraine war pictures which were shown, George Floyd incident, which was doctor, the video which was it showed him as being killed, it was also a doctored video. So the potential of this deep faking is, the risk is very high, and it needs short-term as well as long-term solutions. The short-term solutions, of course, if such an incident happens, which is completely untrue, then how do I make sure that the general public, forget 2-tier, 3-tier cities, even people in urban cities are going to be, if I do an airdrop of a video which is completely fake, even, I may, think that it is true. So forget, people who are there somewhere in the villages. So first of all, people everywhere across the world need to be educated about this fact of deep fakes, and, they need to be sensitized about this. That would be the first step, so that, the damage control becomes easy. And the third database that Shukla sir mentioned, the cycle of election, again, if there are any complaints against a particular party, I can also fake the evidences for it. If I make a complaint about someone and the political party has to testify against me, they can create an evidence which is actually untrue. It could be the other thing also, that my complaint is also wrong. I'm doing it for nefarious purposes. So either I could be the culprit, or the political party could be the culprit, but we can tilt the decision in our favor. So this is not to be viewed very lightly, considering, the elections are not very far. And I feel that censorship is needed. Somewhere the deepfake identification has to be embedded within the technology of things. And again, that has to be informed across to the people, because even if I am aware that a watermark content is an AI content, a non-watermark content is not an AI content, it's a real content. So a villager sitting somewhere in Bihar or Jalgaon or I mean they will not know that this is doctored or this is real. They will not know what even a watermark is, right? So they are the voters, they are the electoral base. So so all the four databases are have deep fake possibilities, and they need to be tackled in the short term and the long term way. That's the only thing that I wanted to put across.
Thanks, Uma. Thanks, Uma. To put this in perspective and to get to solutions, we do need someone to act as a devil's advocate and to give the other perspective as well. Sanjayji, you raised your hand. Before I come to you, Sanjayji, Dr. Harsh, you want to say something? Is it an extension of what you were saying earlier?
No, I think we'll continue with it. The only thing is that as far as the broadcasting bill is concerned, I just would like to point out, rather one of the madam raised on this, that the CEC's content and the members are important, So as my previous speaker, madam, has also said that, the censorship at some stage when there's a news going to the public domain and verifying it is not easy, because we have to know the demographic and the education of the people, those who are going to expose to the news. You can't expect everyone going and verifying everything. So therefore, it's better if the source is controlled rather than the viewer is going back, receiving the information and going to validate it. So I think the point which was raised earlier, that censorship at the source is required. And I think the legislation regarding that are important.
I have a follow-up question to that. It may not be in the right context here in this particular segment. As a think tank, we get a lot of startups who are pitching to us and giving their solutions. And this startup that came 2 months ago, they could, transliterate or translate your speeches in different Indian languages, and while the video remained constant. So, Dr. Harsh, I'll also connect with you. Do you feel that somewhere impinging? Is it over exceeding its brief, or is it also falling into gray area, gray territory? I'll come back to you. Sanjayji, all yours.
Thank you, Aman. And I think a very, very interesting discussion. And when you asked about that, to act as a devil's advocate or what are the tools available, and thanks for giving me this opportunity, because what we do is a cybersecurity company, and we definitely help the organizations, the government, and the other institutions to see that where the safeguard is. We all know the problem. We all know that what a deepfake can do, and deepfake is something not new. Probably I'll just go a little back and say that when in the movies, the duplicates were used, they were impersonating as a star. It was a clear entertainment thing which happened. And then it started all with the pornography. The deepfake was used, a celebrity's face put on a porn and then, done that. And we all know this. This has been there forever. What are the things which needs to look at? Is there a technology which is available? There are definitely so many tools, which are available in the industry. With the new rules which are coming up, we have a DPDP Act, we have the Broadcasting Act, we have the acts where all the social media platforms have been made responsible for the content. There is a lot of evaluation of the entire legal regime which is happening in the country right now. And tech and the entire domain of this tech is very, very evolving. You have something today, and DPDP Act just came in, and now last week our minister saying that we need a bill on AI deepfake. There is a requirement. So it's evolving very, very quickly. Everything is happening very fast. Elections are coming up. We're just finishing up elections in 5 states. Then the national level elections, the Lok Sabha elections will be coming in 24. And as somebody who was a previous speaker just spoke about that, a video with one of the very prominent leader, maybe the prime minister or one of the political party leader, a national leader, or even a local leader, accepting a bribe, or maybe involved into a porn or something which goes to a villager, how will he ensure that the video is a fake or it is a genuine video? The decision has to be made there, and we have to all just look into that side. Is there a technology available where all these platforms, including WhatsApp, Telegram, all the social media platforms, Instagram and Facebook and YouTube and all others, can they get some technology to work where they say the moment any deepfake is put in, can we remove it? There are enough tools available. there is there's a called a fake catcher, V-Verify. There are multiple forensic tools which are available to ensure that the deepfake is caught and they can be removed. There are some very easy ways to identify, but again, the training and awareness to the village level when we're talking of the elections, specifically the lower, strata of the society where the people, everyone have a mobile in their hand, but they are not too much aware of the technology. It's a simple thing to look at the lip and the eye movement of the deepfake, which is very easily a person who could be from the forensic side can easily identify if that is a deepfake, because the lip and eye movements are not in sync. Some very, very high grade deepfake, even they have been able to cover up that their eye and lip movements are very, very in sync. But there are multiple other ways to look at, sometimes the hair color, sometimes the supernatural color of the lips, the moles. There are multiple things which a person can actually look into deepfake, but is the awareness. The RBI has been doing a lot of awareness about the bank frauds, the cyber online frauds, right? Do not give your OTP and this. Has the Election Commission thought of making an awareness campaign against the deepfake? Is there something in the pipeline, or that something can be done? The industry bodies are ready to support. Companies like us are ready to support there and come and say, okay, we will help you create these kind of awareness campaigns. Are we ready to go to the public at large? Are we going to use the media campaigns, maybe in the radio, the TV channels, the social media platform? Are we there to say, are we using a brand ambassador like RBI using Amitabh Bachchan to campaign against that? Do not go give the OTP, be the Samazdar, and the kind of campaigns what the RBI is doing. Is the Election Commission ready to take on that? I think that's my take on the deepfake and how to tackle that around the election area. It's a very, very large area. It's about the frauds. It's about the online issue. We've been talking about in multiple forums that right now we are only talking of the deepfake from the election, but have we looked at the deepfake voice impersonation, and that voice goes to a son or a father and says that, okay, transfer, or a CFO to CEO saying that transfer this much of amount of money from my bank account to this account. It can be a large issue, and there have been some very large frauds happening there. Thank you.
Thanks. Just Yash. Before we go to Jaspreet, he raised his hand.
So it's good that Sanjay ji has voiced out what we all are in fact looking and pondering. So keeping this into consideration, the union government intends to come out with the actionable items in 4 key areas: detection of deepfakes, preventing the spread of such content, to strengthen the reporting mechanism, and to spread the awareness. Yes, definitely. There can be through the Emerging Technology Council, we are engaging with the government, we are engaging with the MSMEs, we are engaging with the Ministry of IT, with Ministry of MHA, with DOT, the ill effects of launch of 5G. So there are lots of initiatives which we are doing both at the MSME level and also at the college, university, and the school level. So yes, we should. I agree with you that we should reach to the last milestone. The awareness, the teaching, the upskilling, the reskilling, or whatever is very much essential, and we would love to further discuss with you on this. And as we all know that AI continues to evolve, and businesses are quickly adopting AI-powered cybersecurity solutions since you are in cybersecurity. So we recognize, we do recognize their pivotal role in defending against the ever-expanding array of cyber threats. But with regret, I would like to say that cyber criminals, they are quick to leverage the AI in their pursuit of more potent and target attacks with respect to phishing, malware, deepfakes. There's powerful denial of services attacks. So these things continues. So we would have to. I would be happy to have further discussion on it. And yeah, that's it. Thank you.
Yes. Yeah, Jaspreet ji. Yeah. Then we'll come to you, Maya. Yeah, Jaspreet ji.
So I think very relevant points raised by Sanjay ji and everybody else. A couple of points which I wanted to speak was, unfortunately, the creation of deepfake is also the solution. AI creates deepfake, but I think you need to have very strong AI detection systems to look at deepfakes. That's why it is called deepfake, because it's very, very difficult to identify whether it's fake or not. So we definitely need reporting. We definitely need detection mechanisms, right? But the second point, and some excellent points made by Sanjay on the entire awareness piece. I think awareness is going to be the killer while which will help us solve this problem. Currently, we are doing zilch from an awareness perspective. Whether it is from a celebrity perspective, election, you can take this issue anywhere, right? It's not only restricted to image. Voice deepfakes are very, very common. There are spoofed IVR calls saying you've made a transaction of 15,000 rupees on ICICI Bank. Press 1 to confirm if you've done. Probably, I'm sure all of you would also be getting at least a couple of calls a day around this. The last point that I want to make is that, like we have 1930 where we report cyber crimes. I think there has to be a dedicated reporting mechanism by the government of India to report deepfakes. I think all of us come across deepfakes, but nobody really knows where do I go and report them so that they can be taken down. If you see what happened last week, government of India has given social media companies 1 week to identify and to tag and bring down all the deepfakes that we have currently. But it's easier said and done, right? How do we put that process in place, and how do we make sure that everybody is aware, saying, if I spot a deepfake, this is what I have to do? What are the 3 steps? Do I have a telephone number where I have to go? Is there a portal like Certain where I can go so that it brings down? And I think the timing is also key, right? If the stock market opens at 8:30 and there's a deep fake at 8:15, how can I limit the damage by stopping it from spreading? The timing of the deep fake becomes very, very important when you look at cases like election, etc. My 2 cents.
Thanks, Jasprit. Mai, yes, go ahead. Then we come to you, Simon. Mai.
Just wanted to add that I think that probably awareness is one of the more crucial parts when it comes to user preparedness, especially if we want to prohibit the next version of Cambridge Analytica, but in deepfake, which clearly, I guess, will be the next evolution of what we've seen in the past, even though we're still seeing some, I would say, some technical fallacies when it comes to deepfake, and there is still, I would say, in certain parts, some awareness to how it can be even more enhanced. I will say that in terms of conversion, we've definitely seen the success of deepfake and what seems to be the recent elections in Slovakia. We've seen the success of a certain deepfake video impacting the electoral results. This is an alarming incident, which definitely can teach us a lot. But adding to that, I think that in addition to the awareness component, which is crucial, it is imperative to discuss the distinguishing between social media platforms compared to platforms like Instagram, Facebook, Meta, Twitter, which we can report. WhatsApp and Telegram pose a different kind of threat. So I would say that in addition to user preparedness and awareness, we also need to understand what will be the tools and safeguards that each social media platform will put just to moderate possible harms. And in addition to what's happening already today when it comes to what social media platforms are trying to do to tackle deepfake and fake news generally.
Thanks, Maya. Simon, you can go now.
Yeah, thank you. Nice to meet everyone. I think I agree with what everyone said about the importance of awareness raising. I just wanted to add, my 2 cents from the perspective of someone who spent the bulk of the last, 15 years researching for the purposes of political strategy, but basically sitting in focus groups in dozens and dozens of countries around the world, listening to voters, trying to understand what they believe, what they hope for, what they fear. And what I think we have to look at this in the broader context, which is just a complete deterioration in trust of public institutions, of the mainstream media, as a sort of arbiter of truth. You know, I grew up in the UK. In the UK, if the BBC said something, that was the truth, and that clearly isn't the case anymore. And once we look at it in this broader context, you know, AI and deep fakes, like somebody else, I can't remember, said, the same as all sorts of different things that are going on, that have been going on for a long time. But once the public trust in sort of the media as the arbiter of truth goes down, then who's to say that something they see on WhatsApp is any less true than what they see on the BBC or on CNN or whatever that is? And I think that's the big challenge, and that obviously creates a big space for fake news and deep fakes and so on. I agree with, you know, what everyone says. The main answer is real sort of civic education. One of the other things that you see in focus groups, and you see, is that voters, even in the most poor rural countries, people are a lot more clued in than perhaps we, you know, people in my profession and other people give them credit for. I think people really do grapple with these issues, even, you know, in rural parts of, you know, some really, you know, really poor countries to the West. People are more clued in. And I think with strong civic campaigns that educate people about these issues, I think that's the best opportunity to fight back. It's not a, you know, somebody said, what about if there was, you know, on the morning of the election, a deep fake, what would that happen? There's all sorts of very intelligent people in the technological field that maybe can provide solutions to that. But my solution is more of a long-term, less of a sort of silver bullet, and more one of long-term education, of investment in that education on behalf of the electoral authorities and governments and NGOs and civil society, so that people are wiser to this, so that people do go and check, and that people view things with skepticism and caution. And I think that's those are my 2 cents based on my experience in the field.
Thanks, Simon. Jaspritji, you had raised your hand. Do you wish to continue your previous discussion?
No, just taking what Simon is saying. Simon, the only problem here as a country is the percentage of people who are aware of this. That is why timing becomes an issue. If this happens in a developed country where people understand what is a deep fake and what's the harm, they could probably still curtail. Unfortunately, we are probably one of the fastest media spreaders, if I were to use that word, in this country, right? So any such incident can actually become viral in less than 30 minutes across the country. Hence, in India, the awareness and the timing both go hand in hand, I would say.
Thanks, Jasprit. I know, Dr. Harsh, you have to sign off. Any concluding remarks before you say ta?
It's going good, and I'm looking forward to hear more about it. Just need to leave for some, you know, another mediation.
No worries, sir.
Thank you so much. Thanks
for being here. Yes, Sanjay ji.
So, Aman, 2 more points. You know, one is that, as I spoke about the tools to catch AI deepfakes, there are enough number of tools which are available, which will help us to remove the, you know, deepfake from the social media. The issues with WhatsApp, you know, if you remember, the WhatsApp has made a lot of changes, while you can only forward it to 5 groups or 5 these things. And if it is too many number of forwards, then you can only forward it to one person at one time, so that it stops on the viral. I think it's another time for WhatsApp like platforms to look at what are the new changes required to put a stop to the deepfake. Also, as I said, there are a number of tools which are available if a report has been made to either those platform or the agencies. You know, it could be a government agencies or the cybersecurity agencies, which have the tools to immediately bring those fakes down. You know, there are tools which we have, we can, you know, we have the APIs integrated with the Meta, with the YouTube and others, where these kind of fakes or the items which are impersonating, which can be brought down. Another thing which is important besides the law, you know, I always say about this law is that India has one of the largest constitutions, and we have enough number of laws. It is all about how much these laws are implemented and how stringently they are put in use. I think these are my 2 cents before I make my closing remarks. Thank you.
Thanks, Sanjay ji. Dr. Charu, you had raised your hand.
Yeah, thank you. So I listened to everybody, and everybody's brought in very unique perspectives to the whole thing. Now, taking cue from whatever has been said in the past by our cybersecurity specialist I would, and taking cue from Dr. Harsh, who's just left, I was trying to think of how it all started, because I go back to Chanakya. Chanakya has been a contemporary thinker for us. Whatever is Sun Tzu in war thinking is Chanakya for us in politics. So Chanakya always said, attack the root cause. Instead of cutting down on the tree, feed sugar at the bottom or at the roots of the tree so that the roots collapse and the tree would collapse. So I was trying to think, what is the root of deep fake? Root of deep fake has been videos. You know, video has become the new currency of democracy. Video in its endless formats. Videos that are circulated as, a way of electioneering, or sting type videos which are circulated by one party against the leaders of other party. So with this kind of realization that it is video, and video which is technically created. So I was thinking what kind of approach we need in a country like India, which goes through elections at different tiers. So we need a whole of society approach. We need a networked approach to combat this evil of videos or whatever deep fake. It can be obviously audio also. Where we need an army of media specialists, IT specialists, non-partisan NGOs, cyber warriors, and teachers for that matter. I'm reminded of a framework, Amanji, which was presented in Harvard Kennedy School on combating with deepfake, which I think Professor Ronald had presented, where he said to fight with deepfake, all the stakeholders need to identify whether they belong to set A or to set B. That means all the deepfake warriors, if I can call them, should have two kinds of skill sets. A, these are critical thinking skill sets, adaptive skills as he's called them, if I'm recollecting right. So these adaptive skills are all about a country having those people who can manage disagreements and conflicts because of these issues, who can build consensus on what is right and not right. And, this adaptive skills also require ability to have difficult conversations between opposition and the ruling party. It also needs ability and mindset to deal with the ambiguity which technology brings in. So adaptive skills are critical thinking skill sets for which we need those kind of deepfake warriors and those kind of agencies which will look into all this. And technical skills, which all my friends have been talking as of now, that we need to do fact checking, we need to do source evaluation, we need to do image and video verification, we need to understand personalized algorithms, how do they work. I come from AI domain. The first AI program I wrote was way back in 1984 on Holgrith cards. So I know algos. If you understand how they work, you can combat it through anti-algos, if I can call them. You have to understand how these information manipulations are happening. You have to also remember, like I was saying, basic journalist principles which we should not ignore. My humble request to the entire forum is that all this rests on basic journalistic principles, including expression, freedom of expression, and of course we need AI. So all this can be combated at federal structure, at the center level, at the state level, and at the local level. At the local level, I think teachers and media and NGOs can do a lot of work. If I recollect, properly, Kerala had launched an initiative which was Satyamev Jayate, which is for others, it is Truth Alone Triumphs, to teach students about all the skills I just mentioned. I was I was doing a checklist of all the skills. So they were being taught about personalized algorithms, they were being taught about image and video verification, etc. So, and I recall Finland has been doing this regularly with their journalists, and they have been topping what is called as Media Literacy Index. So India needs to emulate. And I had mentioned about a platform, which is this platform. Please check its validity again. It is by News Literacy Project, NLP, and the platform is called as Checkology. And there is another toolkit called as Annie. So these kind of toolkits and these kind of projects and this kind of networked holistic approach where we don't just focus on cybersecurity or fact verification, but we also focus on building up systems and regulators or informal regulators to help come up with conflict resolution and consensus building and having these difficult conversations at local end. I'm sure, if I can say as a professor, this will be more of a whole of society approach, which will help us to combat this. And let's not forget, elections are just around the corner, but elections will keep happening as the festival of democracy. So we need to change our course curriculum. We need to retrain our teachers. We need to identify warriors at the local level. Of course, Ministry of Home Affairs is coming out with this concept of cyber warriors, but we need to go beyond that, because Valmiki schools and all these schools, when I go and take classes with them on philanthropic basis, I find they're more alert. There's a fire in their belly to do something for the families they belong to or the parents they have in terms of spreading awareness and literacy and information. So I think this was quite a mouthful of speech I've given, but I was like yearning to come out with a holistic approach. And I think the holistic approach is Professor Ronald's Harvard Kennedy School's approach of focusing on adaptive issues as well as technical issues. Thank you.
Thanks, Dr. Charu. Josh, your turn.
Well, thank you very much for having me. This has been a fascinating discussion. I work with Simon, and obviously we do a lot of research, a lot of strategic research, but we also translate that into strategy and communications. And we're trying to look at some of the potential applications for AI, and to do it in a sort of sensible and responsible manner. One thing that's particularly interesting is how to sort of integrate AI into your team. So not necessarily have it as a team leader or a disruptor, but to have it as a tool. So, so anything from sort of face recognition in focus groups. We're definitely not there yet, but there's obviously emotional recognition to see how people are really responding. Because one of the things that we've come across over the years is people will lie in a focus group, and they'll see a particular ad, right? Or they'll hear a particular message and they'll say, this makes me feel A, B, or C. But AI facial recognition, properly programmed, could actually tell you how they're really feeling, if it scares them, if it makes them happy, etc. To test those emotions. So that's something that could be applied. Another thing that's particularly interesting is in the creative space, and just making the work a little bit more efficient. I mean, already you go to ChatGPT and ask them to write a poem about your candidate or a script for a particular ad, and they'll write stuff almost as good as you or me. In fact, probably better than me these days. So I think there are a lot of interesting applications there just to make the work a little bit more efficient. Likewise, using AI to analyze big data. For example, in the US, this is being done already. Congressmen spend half their time. When I say half their time, sorry, they spend about 90% of their time fundraising and not actually governing. And one of those issues is which fundraisers to pick up the phone to. So there are AI tools that can go through all of the data and basically make the whole process more efficient on the fundraising front, who actually to pick up the phone to and spend their time a little bit better. So I think we're very much in the early days of this. And just like 10 years into the field of sentiment analysis online with text, it's still not perfect. It's far from perfect. I think the other tools from monitoring to sort of facial recognition in terms of emotions is also going to take time. But I do think there will be applications that will make the democratic process more efficient. And like I said, the sort of the congressman fundraising example is one particularly interesting example there. So it's definitely in its embryonic stages, but if conducted responsibly, then it could be a positive thing on the democratic election process.
Thanks, George. Actually, Simon and you have given us a very balanced approach. I wanted a real perspective how Polster is looking at AI and deepfakes. I'll come to Abhishek. Uma, you've raised your hand. Would you like to add something?
Yes, first I'll touch base upon what Charu ma'am said, three very relevant points. One is, it has to be it has to be a holistic approach where all the stakeholders get involved, the regulators, government, even the fraudsters, and educationists, NGOs, everyone. Second is, she did mention something about ambiguity of technology. Now, technology is smart, but it is also dumb. Like, for example, if I input a kind of a program into technology, I'm a non-tech person, I'm a chartered accountant by qualification, but let's say I have some criteria which I develop to identify a video as deep fake. But what I do is essentially I mix certain original portions and certain deep fake portions. For example, something which is harmless, I have an original, the real version of it, and then I include a deep fake part in it which is kind of harmful. Then I don't know how the technology will identify it, as whether it will be able to identify it as a deep fake and hence harmful, and hence prevent something which should not be circulated in the social media. So ambiguity of technology is something which I feel is. And then the other gentleman, that the positive things that he mentioned about AI using ChatGPT for writing a poem about your candidate, I think it's usually beneficial, because if I can use big data analytics to segregate my voter base into different sections based on their age and sex and occupation and their likes, dislikes, the expectations from particular political candidate. For example, I know that a certain candidate in XYZ area, or let's say 50% of the population in that area wants a certain project to be completed, then I know where to focus my energies on, right? I know as a political candidate what is it that will make them take in a the positive use of AI. So yeah, all these are the I think these are the only points that I wanted to make.
Thanks, Soma. Rupa, you had raised your hand.
Yeah. So I would like to give some philosophical perspective to this issues that we are discussing. So all the major problems in the world begs for an approach which is based on inner values and awareness. And as rightly said, everyone agreed with that. We need a lot of awareness for challenges like this, and where these technologies can create misinformation and disinformation and can actually, create problems for our social fabric. And if you also look at, the philosophy from the Greek philosophy, 2,500 years ago, Plato's allegory of cave, and he, very nicely he depicts this issues where a group of prisoners are confined in a deep underground dark cave since infancy, and they are completely unaware about the outside world, living in ignorance throughout their lives. And they lived there as captives with their legs and necks tied to chains, stopping them from turning around their heads. And all they do is stare directly facing the wall. So from the beginning, captives never tried to look anything beyond these shadows, and they were never curious to know about the real world. And they became confined to the kind of life they had been living. And so suddenly one of the prisoners is released from these chains and illusions, and he can turn his head around and stand up on his feet for the first time. And he was informed that all his life he was living in misconceptions, and everything that he had known was illusion and delusion. So, Allegory of Cave is an incredible philosophical text because of its symbolism that illuminates so many powerful ideas. And for example, cave, which is symbolized as a limited world that we are trapped into, and the real world is hidden from us. Shadows represent the only thing that we need to perceive as real in the limited world. And they are the lies, conspiracy theories, misinformation, fakery that is circulated around us by individuals, societies, media, politicians, leaders, to persuade us into believing things that they want us to see and believe for their own selfish motives and agendas. The chain represents all the things that keeps us shackled in a very limited intellectual and perceptual understanding of the world around us. Prisoners represent all of us, all individuals who are trapped in a kind of prosaic, simplistic, and just sensory interpretation of the world. And the puppeteers are all those people or institutions that attempt to impose conspiracy theories, fake news, misinformation, and certain narratives upon us. So Plato makes 3 important points in his allegory, which regards to truth, which is it takes time to get accustomed to the truth and eventually re-engineer one's perception in order to understand it and accept it. So once one sees the truth and accept it, one can never go back to their former state. And so, yeah.
Thanks, Rupa. That was a very different perspective. Yes, Abhishek, your turn, man, from a political consultant perspective.
Thanks, Amanji. I was listening to everyone, and that was quite insightful. In this entire discussion, one part is regulation part, second part is ethics part, third part is counter AI. So these are things which we can implement, and from opponent side. So who are opponents? Opponents are power greedy, money greedy people. And there is one famous saying that power makes corrupt and absolute power makes absolutely. So a few years back, when we were working in one very infamous model, that was ocean model. So with the help of that model, we can identify and know the like, dislike, and all psychographical traits of any people or group. So now, with the help of a tool like ChatGPT or any other similar, or recent one is Q star. So we are moving very fast, and we are moving in that way where there is real threat to our democracy. So I was listening to Mr. Shukla and other. Our Indian society is facing 2 problems. One is knowledge gap. These, which I am telling you, is totally based on study and reports. One is knowledge gap, and in a population of 1.45 billion people, knowledge gap is huge. If we compare with the rural, from rural population to metros, and metros to, if we divide that population into classes, so knowledge gap is huge. And second thing is that we are living in a society, particularly in India, the cost of data is very cheap. So everyone using internet and data in a free flow manner. So data is not an issue. And this is good and this is bad, both. Bad because now in the time of election, these people, the people like us, I'm telling you that people like us, easily we can target our target. So this is nothing but just a process of mind control. And in the process of mind control, we applies the methods like persuasion, manipulation, brainwashing, deception and hypnosis. So we can use any medium, and the problem is in all these situations and in all this scenario, the democracy is dying. Few days back, I was telling my friend Simon the same thing. We are moving in that direction, that the greed of people, the fear to lose power, making our politician greedy, and that's why we are slowly losing our grip over democracy. So this is main concern. Thank you, Manji.
Thanks, Abhijit. I just going through the chat, and Uma has written that the problem is we don't know what's real and what's unreal. And it can be true for either side. It's a double-edged sword, as I always say, but she's not agreeing with it. She says it's a powerful atom bomb in its place. So the reason why I said it, Uma, was that I've come across people who actually look at it from a very different perspective, as a tool, as a solution. And there are things that they say that it's been deployed, and the way to use it to their benefit. And while it can have its consequences, which I'm sure that is the reason that it's become a concern of this magnitude, but this is something that
No,
needs
this
to
was
be.
not to, yeah, it was not to counter anything. I
Yeah,
just,
sure, sure.
I just mentioned, based on what the lady said, about the fact that ultimately the truth should prevail. The problem here is, Amal, we don't know what's true and what's untrue, and that is why I said nothing to, counter you per se.
No, I got your drift. I got your drift. I actually, this is the correct approach also, that we need to, as I said earlier, there needs to be a devil advocate who can actually nudge the other side to actually think beyond what is obvious and go into the more nitty-gritties. Yeah.
Yeah, and the pace at which is happening is, it's electrifying, because as I mentioned, I read this somewhere, that there was a person who mentioned that it's a deep fake because there was no eye movement, and within a day or so somebody took up the challenge. Obviously, some bad actor, took up that challenge, and he managed to make a deep fake with the eye movement. So the pace at which it is happening is scary. That's the only thing. We don't have a lot of time. Like long term solutions, of course, regulations, policy, education, awareness, everything. But short term, how do we do the damage control if such thing happens? If it doesn't happen, well and good. If it happens, then how do we do the damage control immediately? Maybe the Ministry of AI or the IT ministry sends out a message to the population that please ignore this. Something has to be done, and it has to be ensured that people are actually watching those news as well. Because if someone has dropped a video and I've not watched what someone who's actually clarifying what's true and not true, then again the damage is done. So it's kind of as someone rightly said, if we can prevent the creation of deep fakes at at the source itself, that would be the best thing. But I don't know the solution to it.
Thanks. Harmeet, you're left before we go to Diptivilas sir to get the summary insights and his perspective on how we are going to take this forward in conjunction with the government and the policymakers. So what do you have to say about this, Harmeet, before we go to sir?
Aman, thank you so much. See, I've been listening to a lot of great ideas and perspectives, and that's very, very interesting topic to have these days. And I would also like to go ahead and design some of the awareness sessions with all the experts we have in here. So I would like to collaborate with a lot of them to give their insights, and we can plan different awareness sessions, because we're already working with a lot of universities and schools and colleges. So I think this can be a great start from there. We already doing certain awareness sessions on these lines. So I think we should, as a group, we should start designing and working on it. That is what my idea is.
Thanks, Harmeet. I think that's two actions that we can promise everyone. One is the awareness sessions that come from you and Yash. He also promised it earlier. Abhishek is actually leading the policy white paper that's going to come out of it, and under the mentorship of Sir. Sir, I leave it to you. Please share your thoughts now. You're muted, sir.
Yeah, thanks, Aman, for giving me the opportunity. And it's been a very revealing and very eye-opening debate, and you might call it or a session, whatever. And you have given me a very, very heavy responsibility to encapsulate all the knowledge that has been given by our knowledgeable presenters and participants. But I'll just take a few minutes to recap what has been talked of. Now, basically, the technology has become very sophisticated. It's been changing very fast, and people are coping up with technology. Now, the process of making the data, passing on the data has been growing very fast. Revenues from doing so have been growing very fast. Now, it's a $126 billion economy today and growing at 54% a year. So you can imagine the explosion of information, explosion of network that is taking place, the potential to damage or improve or modify or alter the consumers or the voters' mind is tremendous. There's a phenomenal money to be made by using AI in a wrong way. But what therefore is needed is that we should be able to appreciate how it can be used for the good of the society rather than allowing it to drift aside here and there. From the election point of view, we learned that from the mechanics of election, you have a lot of 3 or 4 important databases. They are all verified and just put into place, and nobody can tamper with them. But it's a source of nuisance because if people have access to it, unbridled access to the data without knowing the purpose, that may be a source of leakage, a source of nuisance, a source of transmitting wrong information or whatever. The risks are very high. The principles of controlling the data are being debated in Europe and USA, in Britain and in Israel for the last 4 or 5 years, because the speed of use and adoption of this technology has been growing very fast. It shows still a large potential. The guiding principles which are adopted generally is that information it should be linked to privacy as a fundamental right. The owner of the information should be treated as his fundamental right to maintain, to transmit, to control its use. Secondly, we need to have privacy by design rather than by law or by just like open inheritance. Privacy has to be designed. There has to be some element of privacy which has to be built in. And we should have opt-in models rather than opt-out. You can't deem that your data can be used without your permission or without your information. There has to be an obligation to the data user to acknowledge the data owner in the first place. All the downstream users should be carefully tracked down. That's the only way control can be established on the people who are going to misuse the data in future. Once the links are set, it's very easy to find out where exactly the information distortion has taken place. There has to be some liability for unconsented collection of data. Any data collected without consent of the data user or data owner should be treated as a liability on his part, either to seek consent or be acceptable to or be open to penalties. So owner and controller of the data should make sure the data is well used and that all the downstream users should be very well identified so that they can be tracked down, and in case any penal measures are to be taken, they can be taken. So I think this discussion today brought out a lot of many facets. We had the mechanical aspects coming from the ex-election commissioner officer. Others have told us about how deepfake can distort the perceptions of population, and that is a threat. Although the efforts to control uncontrolled data is going on since 1924, ever since all these fiction writers have been writing about this data misuse. But today it has become a menace to society itself because of the large stakes which have been built in. If by giving a wrong information or a wrong rumor, you can win an election and distort the use of public resources like power, land, whatever, then that is a big damage to the society. Therefore, it's very important for us to see that this is taken seriously. While unfortunately people who are in the power are mostly the stakeholders too, is therefore there may be some conflict of interest, but we as a good society, as an open society, and as Charu Malhotra said, the whole of society approach would probably need to have been taken. And any intellectual disposition or analysis will not be enough unless it is put into practice by way of actionable guidelines. And this is what probably we can look for in the near term till laws are made. But information should be treated as a right and should be treated as such for the purpose of ownership and penalties. So I think this should be would be what I have to say on this matter.
Thanks, sir, for putting that everything in perspective. I think the takeaways are that all of us agree on a collaborative approach. Privacy is one of the major concerns, and awareness session is something that we all need to act on. So, as a think tank, what do? We frame and design awareness sessions. The discussion that are being held on this series of dialogues is being compiled as a compendium and given to policymakers, and the same is going through a multiple iterative process, and this is a continuation of that series. So, sir, I would take your permission to thank everyone for being present. You can say the final word and we can conclude, sir.
Yeah, it has been a very meaningful discussion, and we've had a good band of participants, and most of them are aware of the laws, aware of the processes, aware of the potential dangers, the damages that can be caused, and a diverse range of speakers which we have seen, which we have not seen in the recent past in our discussions, and all are very well equipped with information and logic and their arguments. So it's been a pleasure for us to listen to them, and it's a pleasure to learn a lot of new things from participants today. I would like to personally and on behalf of the organization thank each and every one of them, individually, not naming them, but then they should treat it as personal acknowledgement of their contribution to the organization and to society at large. That's what I have to say.
Thank you, everyone. Thanks for being present, and we'll look forward to host you in our future endeavors as well. I'll keep you all posted. Thanks for everyone for your precious time. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.